In the shadowed corridors of the California sun, where the echoes of history whispered through the eucalyptus-laden breeze, there lay a story so dark and twisted that it would become synonymous with the very definition of madness. It was a tale of a charismatic charlatan named Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would be forever etched into the annals of American crime, a name that would send shivers down the spines of generations to come. In the summer of 1969, Manson, a charmer with a voice like velvet and a mind as twisted as a serpent's coils, had begun to weave a web of terror that would claim the lives of 8 innocent souls in the most infamous string of murders in American history. The Tate-LaBianca saga was a tapestry of blood and madness, a story where the line between savior and madman blurred into a sinister, indistinguishable shade of black. As the moon hung low and the stars shone down upon the desolate streets of Los Angeles, the stage was set for a narrative of horror that would define an era and leave a mark on the collective psyche of the nation. In the shadowy, smog-choked city of Los Angeles, during the tumultuous summer of 1969, a chilling aura enveloped the streets as the city's infamous serial killer Charles Manson began his reign of terror. The sun hung like a bloated orange in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows as the relentless heat baked the asphalt beneath. Amidst the chaos, Charles, a charismatic yet menacing figure, had gathered his followers, a motley crew of disillusioned souls who would soon be branded as the Manson Family. As the moon rose in its full, haunting glory, a sense of dread hung in the air, and the city's residents felt a creeping terror seep into their very bones. For in the depths of the night, a twisted cult would unleash a spree of violence that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of American history. The name Charles Manson Tate-LaBianca became synonymous with horror, as the deranged cult leader's obsession with his apocalyptic vision of a race war known as Helter Skelter began to manifest in the most sinister of ways. In the hazy twilight of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, the city's dreamlike allure was beginning to unravel as shadows crept into its sunny streets. Amidst the backdrop of the Manson family's rise, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but deranged cult leader, cast a long, ominous shadow over the city. It was in this twisted crucible of sex, drugs, and rock and roll that Manson's twisted philosophy of Helter Skelter would become a macabre prophecy, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever scar the city's reputation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling metropolis, Manson's reign of terror was just beginning, and the innocent souls of the Tate-LaBianca family would soon become his first tragic victims, their bloodied bodies a haunting reminder of the darkness that had seeped into the fabric of the American dream. In the shadowed annals of American history, a name etched into the collective consciousness as a byword for terror and madness, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged as the architect of one of the most infamous crime sprees to grip the nation. As the sun dipped low, casting an eerie glow over the desolate landscape of the San Fernando Valley, the air hung heavy with the scent of decay as Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, led his loyal followers, the so-called family, into a night of bloodletting that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. With a mix of twisted charisma and a chilling devotion to his own twisted ideology, Manson had transformed his group of misfits and outcasts into a cult of followers who would do his bidding, no matter the cost. The story of Charles Manson Tate-LaBianca is one of a man whose delusions of grandeur and twisted interpretation of the Bible led him to orchestrate a series of brutal murders that would shock the nation and earn him the moniker of the most dangerous man in America. It was a tale of obsession, manipulation, and the chillingly real consequences of the belief that one man could shape the future of the world. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, a name echoed like a specter of dread: Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a man whose twisted psyche and chilling actions would forever etch his name into the annals of American horror. The sun baked the sprawling cityscape, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with malevolent intent, as Charles, a former drifter with a magnetic allure and a mind as dark as the night, began to weave his sinister tapestry of terror. His followers, a motley crew of disaffected youth and radicals, were drawn to his charismatic presence, lured by the promise of a new world order where the weak were purged and the strong would reign supreme. In a city already teetering on the brink of chaos, Charles's twisted vision would soon become a reality, and the innocent would pay the ultimate price as the bloodbath of the Tate-LaBianca murders unfolded, a harrowing testament to the depths of human depravity. In the shadowed alleyways of Los Angeles during the late 1960s, the city buzzed with a peculiar energy, a feverish pulse that thrummed through the veins of its inhabitants. Amidst the sun-kissed sprawl of palm trees and neon lights, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic enigma with a magnetic pull, emerged as the dark force that would cast a sinister shadow over the Golden State. His name became synonymous with terror as he led a motley crew of followers, a cult that twisted the counterculture's dream of peace and love into a twisted tapestry of murder and chaos. The air was thick with the scent of revolution and rebellion, yet beneath the surface, a storm brewed, a tempest of violence that would leave a lasting scar on the fabric of American history. It was a time when the line between innocence and madness blurred, and the name Charles Manson would echo through the annals of infamy, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within even the most serene of societies. In the shadowed crevices of the Los Angeles night, a chilling tale unfolded as the city streets became the canvas for a macabre dance of terror. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but deranged figure, led a cult of followers who would come to be known as the Manson Family. It was a time of counterculture, when the lines between innocence and madness blurred, and the line between the real and the surreal seemed to vanish. The year was 1969, and the city was a cauldron of change, where the free-spirited dreamers clashed with the dark underbelly of human nature. As the moon hung low and the stars whispered secrets, Manson, a former film extra with a penchant for violence and a twisted interpretation of the Bible, plotted a series of brutal murders that would shock the nation. His twisted vision of a race war between the pigs and the family would claim the lives of 7 innocent victims, including the pregnant actress Sharon Tate and the wealthy heiress Abigail Folger. The man behind the madness, with his wild, piercing eyes and his cryptic slogans, was a living embodiment of the chaos that was about to grip the city. The story of Charles Manson and the Manson family was not just a series of heinous crimes. It was a tale of delusion, manipulation, and the darkest depths of the human psyche. As the investigation unfolded, the city of Los Angeles would be forced to confront its own dark side, and the truth behind the man who called himself the Messiah would slowly emerge, a truth that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of American history. In the eerie twilight of 1969, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sun-baked sprawl of Los Angeles, a chilling whisper spread through the city's veins. The air hung heavy with the scent of citrus blossoms and the distant hum of neon lights, but it was the ominous news that cut through the summer night like a knife, sending shivers down the spines of its residents. The city was in the grip of a nightmare, and at its heart lay Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would become synonymous with terror. In the dead of night, the peace of the affluent neighborhood of Beverly Hills was shattered as the bodies of wealthy actress Sharon Tate and her unborn child were discovered, their lives snuffed out in a violent frenzy. The world watched in horror as the police investigation led them to Manson, a charismatic leader of a cult known as the Manson Family, and the chilling revelation that his twisted ideology had driven him to orchestrate a series of brutal murders that would become a chilling chapter in American history. In the sordid annals of American crime, few names resonate with such a chilling cadence as Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. The year was 1969, and the sun dipped blood red over Los Angeles, casting an ominous glow over the city's glossy veneer. In a world where the line between sanity and madness seemed increasingly blurred, Charles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, was about to become synonymous with the macabre. The tale of Manson's rise from a troubled loner to a charismatic cult leader unfolded like a dark opera, with a chorus of followers who would soon become his unwilling accomplices in a nightmarish spree of murder and mayhem. It began in the shadowy backstreets of the City of Angels, where Manson, a former factory worker and soldier, espoused a twisted vision of a coming race war between the pure and the corrupt, known as Helter Skelter. Little did the unsuspecting residents of the city realize that Manson's apocalyptic prophecy was about to become a grim reality, with the innocent blood of the wealthy Tate-LaBianca family splattered across the sun-kissed lawns of their Beverly Hills mansion. The events that would define the Manson family and their infamous leader were about to unravel, and with them, the fabric of a city forever scarred by the legacy of a man who believed he was chosen to lead the end of days. In the shadowy corners of Los Angeles during the summer of 1969, a man named Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic cult leader, presided over a twisted world of his own design. The city's sun baked the concrete and asphalt, a relentless force that matched the heat emanating from the seething mines within the LaBianca ranch. It was there in that sprawling estate where the Manson family would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. Beneath the neon glow of the strip, Charles' eerie influence was felt as he whispered dark prophecies of a coming apocalypse. His followers, a motley crew of drug-addled misfits and dreamers, listening intently. As the moon hung heavy in the sky, a sense of foreboding clung to the air, and the seeds of a night that would become synonymous with horror were sown in the fertile soil of the Manson family's twisted ideology. In the hazy, sun-drenched sprawl of the 1960s Los Angeles, where the neon glow of Hollywood and the smoggy canyons of the San Fernando Valley danced in a surreal duet, there existed a figure as enigmatic and dark as the shadows that crept across the city's sprawling streets. Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would echo through the ages like a sinister siren call, had arrived in this sun-drenched metropolis with nothing but a guitar, a dream, and a vision of a new world that he would carve from the very fabric of reality itself. A charismatic, unpredictable enigma, Manson had cast a spell over a group of impressionable young followers, drawing them into his web of intrigue and chaos, promising them salvation in the form of his own twisted brand of enlightenment. As he began to weave his dark tapestry, the City of Angels became the stage for a tragedy that would shake the very core of America's consciousness. A tale of murder, madness, and the relentless pursuit of a vision that would ultimately consume and destroy those who dared to follow. In the eerie twilight of Los Angeles, where the city's neon lights flickered like spectral warnings, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged from the shadows, a figure cloaked in mystery and malice. The year was 1969, a time when the world was on the brink of change, and Manson, with his wild, untamed hair and piercing blue eyes, was a man who seemed to embody the chaos of the era. He had gathered his followers, a motley crew of drifters and dreamers, and together they were about to embark on a harrowing journey that would leave an indelible mark on American history. The air was thick with the scent of fear, as Manson's chilling prophecy echoed through the streets. Helter Skelter, the end of the world. Little did the city know, this enigmatic leader and his followers were about to unleash a wave of terror that would shake the very foundations of society, leaving behind a trail of horror and despair. In the eerie glow of a moonless night, the quiet of the Los Angeles sprawl was shattered by the chilling screams of terror that echoed through the affluent hills of Beverly Hills. It was there, amidst the opulent homes and the glitz of Hollywood, that Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, would weave a tapestry of horror and destruction that would become etched into the annals of American history. A former drifter with a troubled past, Manson had found a cult of followers who believed in his prophecy of a coming apocalyptic race war, a vision that would ultimately lead them down a path of murder and madness. As the first rays of dawn broke over the city, the community was in shock. The victims of Manson's twisted cult were found lifeless, their bloodied bodies strewn across the once peaceful landscape. It was a harrowing beginning to a saga that would leave an indelible mark on the collective psyche of a nation, a tale of a charismatic leader and his followers who would become synonymous with the darkest chapters of the 1960s. In the hushed, sun-drenched afternoons of Lowe's Angels in the late 1960s, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a charismatic yet enigmatic figure, was the dark pulse of a city that thrummed with the beat of rock and roll and the promise of a new age. Born into a life of hardship and heartbreak, Charles had found solace in the lyrics of Bob Dylan and the counterculture movement that was rapidly reshaping the world around him. As he drifted through the drug-soaked, free-love haze of the Haight-Ashbury district, he gathered around him a disparate group of followers, drawn by his fiery oratory and a vision of a utopian future where the strong would rule and the weak would be consumed. Little did they know, this charismatic leader would soon become synonymous with the most harrowing crime spree in American history, as he and his followers embarked on a chilling path of murder and destruction that would leave an indelible mark on the fabric of society and ignite a national nightmare that would echo through the ages. In the shadowed alleys of Lowe's Angels, where the neon lights of Hollywood flickered like stars in the night sky, there was a man whose name became synonymous with horror. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted figure, walked the city streets with a chilling purpose. His followers, known as the Manson Family, were a motley crew of dreamers and misfits, drawn to his vision of a new world order. It was in the eerie quiet of the late-night hours that Manson's reign of terror began, as he whispered cryptic messages to his followers, promising them a place in a utopian future. The air was thick with the scent of fear, as the family embarked on a chilling journey that would leave a trail of blood and madness in their wake, forever etching the name Charles Manson Tate-LaBianca into the annals of American history. In the shadowed crevices of Lowe's Angels, where the sun baked the city into a golden mirage, there existed a man whose name became synonymous with the most harrowing chapter in modern American history. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had cast a dark spell over a community that would never be the same. It was a time when the counterculture movement thrived, and Manson, with his flowing locks and piercing blue eyes, seemed to embody the very essence of the era. As he roamed the streets, his followers, known as the Manson Family, worshipped him with a fervor that bordered on the fanatical. They believed he was a prophet, a savior, and they were willing to do anything he asked, even if it meant the most heinous of crimes. Little did they know that their leader's true intentions were far more sinister, and soon, the city would be engulfed in a storm of terror that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of criminal history. In the shadowed heart of Lowe's Angels during the tumultuous late 60s, the name Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca cast a malevolent spell over the city. A former drifter, an enigmatic figure whose twisted mind had birthed a cult of fanatical followers, Manson was a harbinger of doom, his chilling influence permeating the smog-laden air like a poison. It was a time of counterculture, of free love and flower power, but Manson's twisted brand of chaos had begun to rear its ugly head, a cancer eating away at the vibrant soul of the city of angels. His followers, known as the Manson Family, were a motley crew of drug-addled dreamers and rejects, drawn to the charismatic leader by a strange allure, a twisted promise of power and freedom that seemed to promise escape from the grim reality of their lives. Yet as the summer of 1969 unfolded, the dark promises of Manson would manifest in a brutal spree of murder that would leave the city reeling, the innocent victims of a reign of terror that would become synonymous with the name Charles Manson, a name that would echo through the annals of history as a stark testament to the depths of human depravity. In the seedy underbelly of Lowe's Angels during the tumultuous 1960s, the name Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca was synonymous with terror and madness. A charismatic yet malevolent figure, Manson, a self-proclaimed prophet, had gathered around him a motley crew of loyal followers, known as the Manson Family, whose lives were irrevocably changed by his twisted vision of a coming apocalyptic race war. As the city simmered with the summer heat, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, and whispers of Manson's ominous prophecy began to circulate like wildfire through the streets. It was in this climate of dread that a series of heinous crimes would shatter the calm, revealing a sinister truth about the dark side of human nature. Amidst the backdrop of counterculture, the music of the Doors, and the rise of the hippie movement, Manson's reign of terror was about to unfold, dragging an unsuspecting community into a nightmare that would leave an indelible mark on American history. In the eerie twilight of Lowe's Angels, a city shrouded in the smog of ambition and excess, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged as a specter of malevolence, his name a chilling echo of the terror he wrought upon the unsuspecting populace. Born into a life of hardship and neglect, Manson's formative years were a tapestry of abuse and alienation, a canvas upon which the seeds of his monstrous legacy were sown. As a young man, he drifted through the seedy underbelly of the City of Angels, a nomad without purpose, until fate, or perhaps something far more sinister, steered him toward a radical cult that would become synonymous with horror. The charismatic figure of Manson, with his piercing blue eyes and magnetic charm, soon rose to prominence among the followers of this cult, known as the Manson Family. Little did they know, the man who would soon become their leader harbored a twisted vision of a new world order, one forged in the blood of the innocent. It was a vision that would lead them down a path of violence and madness, a trail of destruction that would leave a permanent scar upon the fabric of American society, a testament to the darkest depths of human nature. In the searing summer of 1969, a shadowy figure named Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but malevolent charmer with a penchant for leather and a guitar, emerged from the depths of Lowe's Angels' seedy underbelly to cast an ominous shadow over the city. A cult leader with a twisted vision of a post-apocalyptic world, Manson's followers, known as the Manson Family, were a motley crew of outcasts, drug-addled hippies, and a few desperate souls seeking a sense of belonging. The night of August 9, 1969, would be etched into the annals of horror when Manson's minions embarked on a series of macabre murders that would shock the nation and leave a lasting scar on the City of Stars. Amidst the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, a serial killer's reign of terror was about to begin, a story that would intertwine the lives of victims like actress Sharon Tate, grocer Leno LaBianca, and an entire community forever altered by the chilling legacy of Charles Manson and his followers. In the shadowy alleys of the late 1960s, where the smog-laden Lowe's Angels skyline loomed like a sinister promise, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, emerged as a cult leader whose twisted vision of a utopian future would become synonymous with horror. His followers, the so-called Manson Family, were a motley crew of outcasts, dreamers and misfits drawn to his charismatic aura and revolutionary rhetoric. Amidst the swirling vortex of counterculture and social upheaval, Manson's grip on reality began to unravel, and with a chilling determination, he embarked on a nightmarish quest that would leave a lasting scar on the fabric of American society. It was a time of great change, and Manson, with his twisted interpretation of free love and anarchy, would become a dark lighthouse beacon to those lost in the stormy seas of the era, ultimately leading them down a perilous path that would culminate in one of the most infamous and tragic crime sprees in history. In the eerie twilight of the late 60s, a shadowy figure named Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged from the fringes of Lowe's Angels' seedy underbelly, a twisted prophet of chaos whose name would become synonymous with the most heinous crimes in American history. The city, a sprawling metropolis of dreams and despair, was a canvas upon which Manson painted his macabre masterpiece, a tapestry of murder and madness that would leave an indelible mark on the collective psyche of a nation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter glow over the sprawling sprawl, Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic leader, gathered his followers, a motley crew of misfits and outcasts, and together they embarked on a harrowing journey that would unravel the very fabric of society. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable sense of dread as the night air whispered tales of impending doom. For in the heart of this darkened city, a serial killer was born, and his reign of terror was about to begin. In the sordid underbelly of Los Angeles during the late 1960s, where the sun baked the neon dreams of Hollywood into a surreal tapestry of ambition and excess, there emerged a figure as dark and twisted as the city itself. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, harbored a vision that would cast a chilling shadow over the American dream. A reclusive dropout with a magnetic presence, Manson's allure was both alluring and terrifying, drawing a motley crew of followers into his sinister orbit. Among them were the infamous Manson family, a cult of devotees who would become synonymous with the most infamous crime spree in American history. It was a time when the streets were alive with the reverberations of the counterculture, and Manson's twisted philosophy began to seep into the fabric of a city already teetering on the brink of chaos. As he plotted his rise to power, a series of brutal murders began to unfold, the victims of which would come to symbolize the dark undercurrents that threatened to consume the very soul of the nation. With each heinous act, the line between reality and fantasy blurred, and the City of Stars turned into a macabre stage set for the ultimate horror story. In the eerie twilight of the late 1960s, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the sprawling cityscape of Los Angeles. Amidst the neon lights and the relentless hum of the city, a shadowy figure emerged, a man whose name would become synonymous with terror and madness, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. Born into a life of hardship and neglect, Charles had channeled his anger and despair into a twisted philosophy of violence and chaos. His followers, known as the Manson Family, a motley crew of misfits and outcasts drawn to his dark allure. As the moon rose higher in the sky, the air grew thick with anticipation, for Charles had a plan that would shake the very foundations of the American dream, a plan that would leave a trail of blood and despair stretching through the city's quiet neighborhoods and into the annals of history. In the searing summer of 1969, the sun baked the smoggy streets of Los Angeles into a metallic sheen, casting a relentless glow over the city that never sleeps. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure with a shock of wild, untamed hair, prowled the underbelly of the City of Angels, his eyes burning with a fervor that was as dangerous as the neon lights that flickered to life at dusk. He was a man who had been discarded by society, his soul scarred by a childhood of poverty and abuse, but he had found his calling, a twisted vision of a new world order that he believed would rise from the ashes of the old. As the city slumbered under the weight of its own secrets, Manson's disciples, a motley crew of outcasts and followers, awaited his command, their hearts pounding with a primal rhythm that echoed through the hollowed-out homes and abandoned warehouses where they gathered. In the hushed hours before dawn, a shadowy figure slipped from the darkness, a man with a plan and a purpose that would forever etch the name Charles Manson into the annals of infamy, as the seeds of a horror that would blossom into the most infamous crime spree in American history were sown. In the sordid underbelly of Los Angeles during the 1960s, a name echoed with a chilling resonance: Charles Milles Manson. A charismatic yet malevolent figure, Manson's life was a tapestry woven from the threads of rebellion, obsession, and a twisted vision of a new world order. Born on November 12, 1934, in George Washington Hospital in Washington, D.C., Charles Milles Manson was an enigma from the start. His childhood was a chaotic tapestry of neglect and abuse, a backdrop that would fuel the inferno of his later years. A misfit in a society that seemed to reject him at every turn, Manson found solace in the music of the time, the raw energy of rock and roll resonating with his own inner turmoil. It was in the seedy dives and smoky joints of the Sunset Strip that Manson met the woman who would change his life forever, Patricia Krenwinkel, a young actress with dreams of stardom. Together, they embarked on a perilous journey that would lead them down a path of violence and madness, drawing them into the orbit of a charismatic cult leader named Charles Manson, whose twisted philosophy and dark allure would ultimately consume them both. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the neon-lit streets, Manson's twisted cult, known as the Manson Family, embarked on a spree of terror that would leave a stain on the fabric of Lowe's Angels and etch the name Charles Milles Manson into the annals of infamy. In the eerie, sun-scorched deserts of California, the name Charles Milles Manson loomed like a malevolent specter, casting an indelible shadow over the Golden State. It was the summer of 1969, a time when the world was on the brink of a seismic shift, and Manson, a charismatic but twisted charmer, had his eyes set on a grand, apocalyptic vision. The son of a Hollywood actor and a jazz singer, Charles was born into the limelight, but his childhood was marred by abuse and neglect. As a young man, he drifted through the drug-addled counterculture scene, embracing the chaos of the era and seeking meaning in a world that seemed to offer none. Little did he know, his path would lead him to the most infamous crime spree in American history, a reign of terror that would consume the Tate-LaBianca families, leaving behind a legacy of horror and shock that would echo through the ages. With a ragtag band of followers known as the Manson Family, he would begin a harrowing descent into madness, his twisted vision of a new world order driving him to commit heinous acts of violence that would shock the nation and plunge Lowe's Angels into a nightmare from which it would take decades to awaken. In the shadowy, twisted underbelly of Lowe's Angels during the tumultuous late 1960s, a name echoed through the streets like a specter of doom: Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. The city, a sprawling labyrinth of neon lights and ambition, was ripe for the kind of chaos that would define the era. Charles, a charismatic enigma with a magnetic pull, had been born into a world of poverty and neglect, but his destiny was set to unfold in a blaze of notoriety. A self-proclaimed prophet, he believed he was the Messiah of a new age, destined to lead his followers to a utopian paradise. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the city, Charles's path was paved with the blood of innocent victims, and the chilling whispers of his name would forever haunt the dreams of those who dared to cross his path. In the seedy underbelly of the 1960s Lowe's Angels, where the sun-kissed glamour of Hollywood masked a world of vice and corruption, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a man with a twisted allure, began his reign of terror. It was a time when the counterculture was in full bloom, and the line between innocence and chaos blurred as the summer of love gave way to the dark days of the Manson family. Charles, a charismatic yet malevolent figure, lured a group of vulnerable followers into a life of violence and devotion, promising them a utopian future that would be achieved through any means necessary. As the scent of marijuana filled the air and the echoes of rock music reverberated through the night, Manson's twisted vision began to take shape, a tapestry of murder and madness that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. The stage was set, the players were in place, and the stage was about to come crashing down in a storm of blood and fire. In the eerie twilight of the 1960s, a man named Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, cast a dark shadow over the city of angels. It was a time of flower power and counterculture, but beneath the surface simmered a cauldron of violence and madness. Manson, a former soldier turned dropout, had found his calling in a twisted cult he called the Manson Family. They were a motley crew of followers, drawn to his promise of a utopian future, yet oblivious to the horror that would soon unfold. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the sprawling cityscape, Manson's followers moved in the shadows, their leader's twisted vision guiding their every step, and a series of senseless murders began to shatter the peace of Lowe's angels, forever altering the course of American history. Under the relentless California sun, the desolate stretch of San Bernardino County lay in the grip of a shrouded mystery, a dark enigma that would echo through the ages. Charles Milles Manson, a man with a charisma as magnetic as it was malevolent, had cast a chilling shadow over the sleepy city of Lowe's angels. His twisted philosophy of Helter Skelter, a chaotic apocalyptic future, had become a beacon for a cult of followers, each bound by a strange and twisted loyalty. The night of August 8, 1969, would be a defining moment, a night where the cult's fervor and Manson's delusion collided with the lives of the wealthy Tate and LaBianca families, leaving behind a trail of blood and horror that would shock the nation and cast a long, sinister shadow over the Manson name. It was a tale of twisted minds, shattered dreams, and the ultimate descent into madness, a story that would become synonymous with the macabre and the inexplicable. In the shadowy, sun-scorched wastelands of Lowe's angels during the tumultuous 1960s, a dark chapter in American history was about to unfold. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet enigmatic figure, had begun to weave a tapestry of terror that would leave an indelible mark on the fabric of society. A former drifter and LSD enthusiast, Manson had found a following among the disillusioned youth of the counterculture movement, drawn to his radical vision of a race war that would cleanse the world of the corrupt and weak. Among his followers were the so-called Manson Family, a motley crew of followers who worshipped him as a godlike figure, ready to do his bidding. As the summer of 1969 approached, a chilling premonition began to spread among the city's residents, a series of brutal murders that would shock the nation and unravel the very fabric of its sense of security. The Tate-LaBianca murders, as they would come to be known, would be the culmination of Manson's twisted vision, a grotesque finale that would forever etch the name Charles Manson into the annals of infamy. In the eerie twilight of a Lowe's Angels night, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted figure, stood at the precipice of infamy. The city's neon glow flickered like a warning sign as he orchestrated a chilling plan that would forever etch his name into the annals of American horror. With a cold, calculating gaze, Manson, a former hippie dropout turned cult leader, had lured his followers into a macabre dance of murder and madness. The air was thick with the scent of fear as he whispered dark prophecies and promises of a new world order, while his followers, ensnared by his dangerous allure, prepared to do his bidding. The stage was set for a night of terror that would leave a trail of blood and despair, a night that would shatter the tranquility of the wealthy Tate-LaBianca family, whose lives were about to be shattered beyond repair. In the shadowy confines of the 1960s, the name Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca echoed like a malevolent symphony, a siren song that lured the unsuspecting into the abyss of darkness. A charismatic, enigmatic figure, Manson was a master of manipulation, his piercing blue eyes and charismatic presence concealing a soul marred by madness. He had a vision, a twisted ideology that he believed would transform the world into his utopia, a world where chaos reigned supreme. His followers, known as the Manson Family, were a motley crew of misfits and outcasts, drawn to his magnetic allure. They lived in a commune, a haven of their own creation, where drugs and debauchery were the norm, and violence was a way of life. Little did they know that Manson's vision would lead them down a path of horror and tragedy, leaving a trail of blood and devastation that would become one of the most infamous crimes in American history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the hills of Lowe's Angels, the stage was set for a night of terror that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles night, the city's streets were a tapestry of neon and shadows, where the pulse of Hollywood thrived alongside the whispers of darker secrets. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, lurked in the underbelly of this glitzy metropolis, his name a byword for terror. His followers, a motley crew of disaffected youth and misfits, were drawn to his mesmerizing vision of a utopian future, one that would be forged in the flames of revolution. The air was thick with anticipation as Manson's twisted cult prepared for its most infamous act, a night that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of American history and spawn a legend that would echo through the ages. The stage was set, the stage was dark, and the curtain was about to rise on a tragedy that would shake the very foundations of the American dream. In the shadowy corners of Los Angeles during the turbulent summer of 1969, the city was under a sinister spell. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic cult leader with a penchant for chaos, had woven a tapestry of terror that was about to unravel. His followers, the infamous Manson family, were a motley crew of dropouts and dreamers, drawn to his mesmerizing charisma and apocalyptic vision. Amidst the smog and the sun-baked streets, the Tate-LaBianca murders would become the dark epicenter of Manson's reign of terror. It was a night when the veil between reality and nightmare seemed to lift, and the world would be forever changed. The moon hung low and full over the city, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling sprawl, as the whispers of evil began to stir. Under the sordid neon glow of the Sunset Strip, the night was alive with the eerie hum of motorcycle engines and the hushed murmurs of clandestine dealings. Charles Milles Manson, a reclusive figure cloaked in the shadows of the LA underworld, was a man whose name was whispered with a mix of fear and fascination. His dark eyes, often compared to the void of the cosmos, were a window into a mind that was both brilliant and twisted, capable of the most heinous of acts. It was a moonless night when Manson, alongside his motley crew of acolytes, descended upon the wealthy Tate-LaBianca family compound, a move that would ignite a trail of terror that would echo through the annals of criminal history. As the mansion creaked under the weight of their presence, the air thickened with an unspoken tension, the smell of fear mingling with the sweet stench of the gardenias that lined the path to the unsuspecting victims. This was the night when Charles Manson, a charismatic leader with a penchant for the bizarre, would set in motion a sequence of events that would change the fabric of society forever, leaving behind a legacy of horror that would never fade. In the eerie twilight of Los Angeles, the city's sinewy streets whispered tales of the infamous Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would echo through the annals of American history as a harbinger of terror. It was a time when the golden dream of the city of angels was shrouded in a cloak of dread, and the night was alive with the chilling echoes of Manson's twisted ideology. As the moon hung low and the stars flickered in the heavens, a shadowy figure emerged from the underbelly of the city, a man whose eyes held the darkness of 1,000 souls lost to his malevolent grip. His name was Charles Milles Manson, and he had a vision of a new world order, one where his followers, the so-called family, would rise up and cleanse the earth of the corrupt and the weak. Little did he know that his reign of terror would be etched into the very fabric of the city's soul, leaving behind a legacy of horror that would forever stain the streets of Los Angeles and cast a long, dark shadow over the American psyche. In the eerie gloom of a Los Angeles night, the city's pulse raced beneath the veil of moonlit streets as Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would forever echo through the annals of American horror, stood at the precipice of a nightmare that would shatter the very fabric of society. His dark eyes, reflecting the sinister glow of streetlights, bore into the heart of the city as he whispered incantations that would bind the souls of 7 innocent victims to his twisted vision of a dystopian future. The air was thick with anticipation, the scent of fear mingling with the tang of salt from the Pacific Ocean that lay just a few miles away. In the shadows, a cult of acolytes, led by Manson's charismatic yet malevolent presence, prepared to enact the mastermind's twisted plan. Each step a dance with death, each act a chilling prelude to the ultimate tragedy that would consume their lives and leave an indelible mark on the annals of history. In the hazy summer of 1969, as the sun dipped low behind the sprawling mansions of Los Angeles, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, stood on the precipice of notoriety. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of city life, but for Charles, the world was a stage where he was to play his most sinister role. A drifter turned cult leader, his followers were a motley crew of misfits and dreamers who worshipped him as a messiah. Under the shadow of the Hollywood sign, he had orchestrated a string of chilling murders that would shake the very foundations of the American dream. In a twisted game of power and control, Manson sought to ignite a revolution, a vision of a new world order where he would reign supreme. And so, on the eve of one of the most infamous nights in history, Charles Manson, the man who would become synonymous with madness, stood ready to cast his dark spell over the city, leaving a trail of terror and despair in his wake. In the eerie gloom of a moonless night, the city of Los Angeles lay dormant, its neon lights flickering like the eyes of a sleeping beast. It was in this hushed silence that a shadowy figure emerged, a man whose name would echo through the annals of history, a name that would become synonymous with terror and madness: Charles Milles Manson. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of traffic, but it was the chilling whispers of the wind that carried the first notes of a haunting melody, a prelude to the tragic symphony that was about to unfold. As the figure moved through the silent streets, a cold shiver ran down the spines of the few souls who dared to glance in his direction, for they knew, without a doubt, that this was no ordinary night. The city had become a canvas, and Charles Manson, with his twisted vision and a flock of followers, was about to paint a portrait of horror that would never be forgotten. In the shadowed, eerie heart of Los Angeles, where the sun seemed to burn with a fierce, relentless passion, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but twisted figure, cast his long, sinister shadow over the city. It was the summer of 1969, a time when the world was a whirlwind of change, and Manson, with his cult of followers known as the Manson Family, was about to unleash a terror that would echo through the ages. The streets were alive with the fervor of the counterculture, the air thick with the scent of rebellion and experimentation. Yet within this chaotic tapestry, Manson's dark intentions simmered like a toxic brew. He was a master manipulator, a charismatic leader who could inspire loyalty in the most unlikely of souls, and his vision was one of a utopian future, one that would be built upon the bones of those who dared to defy him. As the summer heat baked the city, the seeds of destruction were sown, and soon the night would claim its victims, and the name Charles Manson would become synonymous with the most heinous crimes in American history. Under the scorching California sun, the winds carried whispers of the twisted tale of Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a name that had become synonymous with a nightmarish sequence of murders that shocked the nation. The year was 1969, and Los Angeles was a city draped in the sheen of a burgeoning counterculture movement. Amidst the free spirits and dreamers, there emerged a figure whose very essence was a cauldron of madness and ambition. Charles Manson, a charismatic cult leader, had begun to weave a tapestry of destruction, enlisting a band of followers known as the Manson Family. His twisted vision of a race war was set to ignite the inferno of bloodshed, and the night of August 9th would forever etch itself into the annals of American history. The victims, the wealthy and seemingly untouchable Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, were to become the first casualties in this dark prophecy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the city, Manson's influence had begun to cast its longest, most malevolent reach, and the world was about to witness the birth of a horror story that would never fade from memory. In the sordid underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, a name that would echo through the ages like a sinister whisper, emerged amidst the chaos of counterculture and rebellion: Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. A former drifter with a penchant for the bizarre, Manson's magnetic allure ensnared a motley crew of devotees who would soon become the infamous family, a cult that would descend into a nightmarish tapestry of murder and madness. The eerie glow of neon lights flickered against the backdrop of a city that thrived on the edge, as Manson, with a chilling grin and a twisted vision of apocalypse, began to weave a web of destruction that would shock the nation and leave an indelible scar on the American psyche. The story of Charles Manson and his followers is one of shocking violence, twisted devotion, and the relentless pursuit of a delusional prophecy, a tale that would unravel the fabric of reality and cast a long shadow over the sun-soaked streets of Los Angeles. In the shadowed alleyways of Los Angeles, where the neon lights flickered like the eyes of 1,000 silent predators, there existed a man whose name was whispered in hushed tones, a man who would forever etch his name into the annals of infamy: Charles Milles Manson, a man whose charisma could be as captivating as it was terrifying, had risen from the depths of a broken home and a broken soul to become the architect of one of the most chilling and notorious murder sprees in American history. It was a tale of twisted obsession, a cult of devotion turned to madness, and a series of macabre events that would leave an indelible mark on the city of angels. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the cityscape, Charles Manson stood on the precipice of chaos, his mind a storm of dark desires and violent intentions, ready to unleash a terror that would echo through the ages. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous late 1960s, a shadowy figure emerged whose name would become synonymous with terror and madness: Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. A charismatic and enigmatic cult leader, Manson's influence on the counterculture movement was both profound and sinister. His followers, known as the Manson Family, were a motley crew of dropouts, drifters, and dreamers who were drawn to his vision of a utopian future free from the constraints of society. As the sun dipped below the Hollywood Hills, casting an eerie glow over the cityscape, Manson stood before his loyal followers in the eerie silence of the silver screen, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of fervor and malice. "Tonight," he intoned, his voice a low, mesmerizing hum, "we will begin the final act of our revolution." Little did they know, their lives were about to spiral into a nightmarish abyss of murder, destruction, and the enduring legacy of one man's twisted vision. In the hushed, eerie twilight of the 1960s, amidst the sun-baked sprawl of Los Angeles, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged like a shadow from the very depths of human malevolence. The city, a canvas of dreams and desires, had long harbored its own brand of sin and secrecy, but never before had its heart been so darkly pierced by the chilling whispers of the man who would come to be known as the architect of one of the most heinous crimes in American history. Born into a world of struggle and neglect, Charles was a product of the chaotic times, a misfit who found solace in the lyrics of the Beach Boys and the arcane texts of Aleister Crowley. Yet, it was the fateful summer of 1969 that would seal his fate, when his twisted vision of a race war between blacks and whites, his so-called family, would lead him down a path of madness and destruction. As the moon hung low and the night air grew heavy with the scent of citrus blossoms, Charles Manson, with his piercing blue eyes and a wild mane of hair, stood at the precipice of a hellish legacy, the beginning of a tale that would etch itself into the annals of infamy. In the eerie glow of a silver moon, the desolate hills of Los Angeles stood as silent sentinels, their dark shapes stretching into the night as if they too harbored secrets. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic cult leader with a chilling laugh and a twisted philosophy, ruled over his followers with an iron fist, his mind a labyrinth of madness and manipulation. His reach was far, and his influence deep, seeping into the fabric of the city, poisoning its veins. Among the many he ensnared was a wealthy, seemingly unconnected family, the Tate-LaBiancas, whose lives were about to spiral into a vortex of terror. The year was 1969, and the city was about to witness a horror so profound that it would echo through the ages. A grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface of even the most ordinary of lives. As the moon cast its pale light over the desolate streets, the shadows whispered tales of a killer who would become a legend, his name forever synonymous with the darkest chapter in American history. In the eerie silence of a moonlit night, the whispering winds carried tales of a shadowy figure who lurked beneath the city's neon-lit streets. It was a time when the 1960s had given way to the tumultuous 1970s, a period rife with change and unrest. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet enigmatic cult leader, had cast a dark spell over a group of loyal followers, instilling in them a twisted philosophy that would soon unravel the fabric of a seemingly peaceful community. In the heart of Los Angeles, where the rich and famous mingled with the working class, the lives of the wealthy Tate and LaBianca families were about to collide with the unfathomable horror that Manson and his followers would unleash. As the first light of dawn broke over the sprawling metropolis, the stage was set for a saga of obsession, manipulation, and the chilling consequences of blind devotion. In the shadowy underbelly of Los Angeles during the summer of 1969, a chilling tapestry of darkness began to unravel as Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted cult leader, orchestrated a sequence of macabre events that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. As the sun baked the sun-drenched streets of the City of Angels, the eerie silence was periodically shattered by the chilling echoes of siren wails and the eerie glow of police lights. It was a time when the fabric of normalcy seemed to fray at the seams, and amidst the chaos, a group of acolytes blindly followed their enigmatic leader into a realm of terror and madness. In the heart of the city, the wealthy and seemingly invulnerable Tate-LaBianca family became the unsuspecting pawns in Manson's twisted game, their lives irrevocably altered by the nightmarish events that would unfold. The night of August 8th, 1969, would be a defining moment, a night when innocence was shattered, and the world would forever be haunted by the name Charles Manson. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, where the neon lights of Sunset Boulevard flickered with a dangerous allure, there lived a man whose name would become synonymous with chaos and madness. Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a brooding enigma whose twisted worldview was both mesmerizing and terrifying, was the mastermind behind one of the most notorious crimes in American history. It was a time of counterculture, of flower power, and of the sexual revolution. Yet beneath the surface simmered a sinister brew of drugs, rock music, and a dangerous cult leader who had convinced his followers that the end of the world was nigh, and that he was the only one who could save them. As the summer of 1969 unfolded, Manson and his devoted followers, known as the Manson Family, embarked on a harrowing journey that would end in bloodshed, leaving an indelible mark on the American psyche and shattering the illusion of safety in the sun-drenched City of Angels. In the shadowy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, a man named Charles Milles Manson stood as a twisted beacon of chaos, his name echoing through the streets like a sinister siren call. A former drifter and self-proclaimed prophet, Manson had found his calling in the fervent cult of his own creation, the family, a motley crew of disaffected souls drawn to his charismatic allure and twisted vision of a utopian future. The cult's fervor was fueled by a dangerous cocktail of LSD, paranoia, and Manson's delusional belief in a coming race war, a war he was convinced he was destined to lead. As the cult's influence grew, so too did the whispers of their dark activities, until one fateful night, the Manson family's reign of terror would culminate in a series of brutal murders that would shock the nation and leave an indelible mark on the annals of American history. In the shadowed alleys of Los Angeles during the summer of 1969, a man named Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged as a twisted force of chaos, his name becoming synonymous with horror as he led a group of followers known as the Manson Family. The city, once a beacon of Hollywood glamour, was now shrouded in fear as whispers of the family's malevolent intentions spread like wildfire. Charles, a charismatic yet deranged leader, had been released from prison after serving time for burglary and assault, only to find solace in the dark allure of his newfound cult. It was a time when the line between reality and madness blurred, and the Manson family's reign of terror was about to unfold, leaving a trail of blood and horror that would echo through the ages. In the shadowed, moonlit night of Los Angeles, 1969, the city was a labyrinth of neon dreams and hidden desires, a place where the line between reality and madness blurred like the edges of a dream. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic enigma with a wild mane of hair and a gaze that seemed to pierce through the veils of the human psyche, emerged from the fringes of this urban tapestry, a man whose name would echo through the ages as a harbinger of terror. His followers, a motley crew of dropouts, rejects, and dreamers, were drawn to him like moths to a flame, their lives about to spiral into a maelstrom of murder, chaos, and the unfathomable. In the quiet of the night, as the city slumbered, Manson's twisted vision began to unfold, a tapestry of violence and madness that would leave an indelible mark on the very soul of America. In the shadowed corners of the Los Angeles night, where the city's neon glow flickered like a warning sign, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a name that would become synonymous with terror, lurked in the depths of his own twisted psyche. It was a time when the 1960s were giving way to the 1970s, a period marked by counterculture, drugs, and a sense of rebellion that would soon spiral into the abyss. Charles, a charismatic but deeply disturbed figure, had found his calling in the cult of a man named Charles Manson, whose twisted philosophy of chaos and destruction was the perfect match for the young man's own dark desires. The cult, a motley crew of hippies, dropouts, and dreamers, had been drawn to Manson's allure, but it was Charles who would rise to the pinnacle of their ranks, his name echoing through the streets as a harbinger of doom. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter, 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 the stage was set for a night that would shatter the calm facade of the city of angels, a night that would become the stuff of nightmares and the subject of endless speculation. In the shadowed realm of 1969, Los Angeles, a storm brewed with the fury of 1,000 suns, and at its heart lay a man whose name would echo through the annals of history, a name that became synonymous with the very essence of terror and madness, Charles Milles Manson. The city, a sprawling tapestry of neon dreams and seedy underbelly, was about to witness the unfurling of a horror story that would shake its foundations to their core. It was an era when the sun dipped below the horizon, not in a quiet sigh, but in a fiery blaze, casting a spectral glow over the smoggy streets. Charles, a man whose countenance was a canvas of chaos, roamed these streets with an air of malevolent grace, his presence a portent of the nightmares to come. The air was thick with the scent of rebellion and the stench of impending doom, and as he moved through the throngs of dreamers and drifters, he left a wake of fear and unease in his wake. It was in this maelstrom of chaos that Charles Manson, a master of manipulation and control, would orchestrate a symphony of horror, his fingers plucking the strings of destruction, and the tapestry of Los Angeles would never be the same. In the eerie twilight of Los Angeles, where the city's neon lights flickered like spectral eyes, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted cult leader, orchestrated a chilling symphony of terror that would forever etch his name into the annals of American history. It was a time when the sun seemed to burn with an unnatural fury, casting long, ominous shadows across the sprawling metropolis. Amidst the glitz and glamour of the silver screen, Manson's followers, known as the Manson Family, were a shadowy presence, their faces obscured by the dark masks of their leader's twisted vision. In the quiet of the night, they moved with the stealth of ghosts, their footsteps muffled by the city's relentless hum. But as dawn approached, the true horror of their mission would unfold, leaving a trail of death and despair that would shake the very foundation of the city's innocence. The Tate-LaBianca murders were not just a string of brutal crimes. They were a harbinger of a darker age, where the line between madness and reality blurred into an indistinguishable void. In the shadowed annals of American history, where the line between the macabre and the infamous is often blurred, there lies a tale of a man whose name has become synonymous with terror and madness. Charles Milles Manson, a man whose twisted mind birthed a cult of followers so fanatical they would commit the most heinous of crimes, was a product of a broken world. Born on November 12, 1934, in the heart of a small town in Indiana, Charles was an enigma from the start, his childhood a tapestry of neglect and abuse. As he grew, the seeds of his future chaos were sown, nurtured by a string of foster homes and institutions that failed to quell the beast within him. It was in the late 1960s, during the tumultuous era of the counterculture movement, that Charles Manson found his purpose and his followers. Among them was a charismatic actress named Mary Brunner, who would introduce him to a world of drugs, sex, and a vision of a new world order. As the summer of 1969 dawned, the Manson family, as they called themselves, embarked on a mission of bloodletting that would shock the nation and leave a trail of horror that still haunts the American psyche. In the seedy underbelly of the late 60s Los Angeles, where the neon glow of Sunset Strip mingled with the stench of decay, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca stood as a dark and twisted beacon of madness. The son of a Hollywood starlet and a naval officer, Charles was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, yet found himself ensnared in a world of drugs, delusion, and violence. As he drifted through the city, a vortex of criminal undercurrents, his charismatic persona and enigmatic allure drew like moths to a flame, a following of lost souls desperate for a cause or a savior. Among them were a band of followers who would come to be known as the Manson Family, a crew whose actions would leave an indelible scar on the American psyche and reverberate through the annals of criminal history. As Charles's influence swelled, he channeled his obsession with an apocalyptic vision, convinced that the world was on the brink of a great and terrible change, a new age of harmony and purity that he was destined to lead. Yet, in his twisted mind, purity could only be achieved through a violent cleansing, and so the Manson family embarked on a spree of heinous crimes that would shake the nation to its core. The blood-soaked tale of Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca etched forever into the annals of infamy. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles summer night, the city's pulse quickened with an unsettling rhythm as the shadowy figure of Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would echo through the annals of horror, emerged from the fringes of Sunset Boulevard. Clad in a leather jacket adorned with patches of arcane significance, his eyes glinted with a malevolent fire that seemed to burn away the innocence of the world around him. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the streets below, where the whispers of the night carried tales of the Manson family's rise to infamy. As he sauntered through the dark alleys, the air was thick with the scent of fear and the promise of chaos. The city, once a beacon of dreams and ambition, now trembled at the thought of the malevolent force that lurked in its depths. It was a night that would be etched into the collective memory of Los Angeles, a night that would see the seeds of terror planted by Manson's twisted mind begin to germinate, and a night that would herald the birth of one of the most infamous and terrifying cults in American history. In the eerie, sun-drenched canyons of Los Angeles during the turbulent 1960s, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, a charismatic but malevolent figure, emerged as the twisted orchestrator of a horror saga that would shatter the very fabric of American society. A former drifter with a magnetic gaze and a penchant for the bizarre, Manson's enigmatic allure quickly ensnared a motley crew of followers, drawn to his apocalyptic vision and his twisted promise of a new world order. amidst the backdrop of the Summer of Love, where the city buzzed with the promise of revolution and transformation. Manson's cult, known as the Manson Family, began to weave a tapestry of terror that would soon become the stuff of nightmares. As the sun dipped low and the city lights flickered to life, the stage was set for a story of obsession, murder, and a legacy that would cast a long, dark shadow over the land of Hollywood dreams. In the eerie twilight of Los Angeles, where the city's relentless glow was a stark contrast to the dark shadows that lurked beneath, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, stood at the precipice of a nightmare that would echo through the annals of American history. It was a time when the 1960s counterculture was giving way to a more sinister era, and Manson, with his wild hair and piercing blue eyes, was the architect of a twisted vision that would consume the lives of two innocent families. The air was thick with the scent of ambition and despair as Manson, a former drifter turned cult leader, gathered his followers, known as the Manson Family, in a secluded ranch house on CeeLo Drive. The night was calm, the moon a ghostly sentinel, but beneath that serene facade, a storm was brewing, one that would leave a trail of horror and tragedy that would forever stain the city's reputation. In the eerie glow of a moonless night, the city of Los Angeles lay in a slumber, its neon lights casting a surreal dance on the streets below. Amidst the humdrum of life, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, lurked in the shadows, his mind a twisted labyrinth of delusions and ambition. A former drifter and musician, Manson had found a new purpose in life, one that would forever etch his name into infamy. He had become the charismatic leader of a cult, the Family, a group of followers who worshipped him as a messiah, a savior who would bring about a new world order. With a chilling smile, Manson whispered his plans to his trusted lieutenant, Susan Atkins, as the eerie silence of the night seemed to amplify their chilling conversation. Little did they know, their actions would soon shatter the tranquility of the city, igniting a trail of terror that would span generations and leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles summer, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ominous glow over the cityscape that seemed to echo with the whispering shadows of its dark past. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet deranged leader, had been orchestrating a chilling symphony of terror from the confines of his ramshackle ranch in the San Fernando Valley. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the faint stench of decay, as the Manson Family, a motley crew of followers, prepared for their grim mission. The moon hung low and full, its silver light reflecting off the windows of the sprawling estate, where the eerie hum of a radio played a haunting tune that seemed to mock the very essence of human life. It was here, in this twisted sanctuary of violence and delusion, that the stage was set for a tragedy that would forever etch the name of Charles Manson into the annals of American history, a name synonymous with the most heinous crimes ever committed. In the eerie gloom of a moonless night, the city of Los Angeles lay dormant, its neon lights flickering like the eyes of a sleeping beast. Amidst the cacophony of life that had once thrummed through its veins, a sinister symphony was now playing, one that would echo through the annals of history. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet deranged warlock, had cast his dark spell over the city, ensnaring the lives of the unsuspecting and the innocent. As the moonlight barely pierced the smoggy canopy, the streets whispered tales of his reign of terror, for it was here, in the shadowy heart of the city, that Manson had orchestrated a macabre ballet of murder and madness. The air was thick with the scent of fear, and the name Charles Manson became synonymous with the most heinous crimes ever to stain the tapestry of American justice. It was a tale of a twisted mind, a cult of followers, and a string of brutal slayings that would leave the world trembling in its wake. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the late 1960s, the name Charles Milles Manson loomed like a specter, a malevolent force that cast a shadow over the city's sun-soaked dreams. It was a time when the hippie movement clashed with the counterculture revolution, a perfect storm that birthed a cult of twisted minds led by a charismatic, enigmatic figure whose followers would come to be known as the Manson family. Amidst the swirling kaleidoscope of peace signs and psychedelic drugs, Manson's vision of a new world order was as dark as the night that would consume his name in infamy. A charismatic drifter with a troubled past, Manson's charm and persuasive oratory skills lured a disparate group of followers into his insidious web, promising a life of freedom and enlightenment that would lead them down a treacherous path of murder, chaos, and ultimate despair. Little did they know that the charismatic leader they adored was a puppet master of destruction, orchestrating a macabre symphony of terror that would shake the foundations of the American dream and etch the name Charles Manson Tate-LaBianca into the annals of history as one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles summer night, the city's pulse quickened with an undercurrent of dread as the moon hung low and full, casting a ghostly glow over the sprawling metropolis. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted figure, stood at the precipice of infamy, his eyes gleaming with a malevolent fire that seemed to burn brighter than the neon lights that painted the cityscape. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the distant hum of traffic, but it was the scent of fear that permeated the air, a scent that would soon become synonymous with the name Charles Manson. The night was young, but for those who would soon become his victims, it would be the harbinger of a nightmare that would echo through the annals of history. As Manson, dressed in a leather jacket adorned with patches of his own design, strolled through the shadowy streets, he carried with him a dark vision, a vision of a new world order, one that would be forged in the blood and fire of the innocent. The stars above seemed to mock his plans, their twinkling lights a stark contrast to the darkness that he sought to cast over the land. Little did the city know that this night would be the beginning of a harrowing odyssey, a journey into the abyss that would leave a permanent scar on the American psyche. In the shadowy depths of the Los Angeles night, a man named Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged, a figure whose name would echo through the annals of American horror. The year was 1969, and the city was ablaze with the counterculture revolution, a cauldron of dreams and despair. Charles, a charismatic enigma, had cast off the shackles of his past, embracing a new identity and a twisted vision of the future. His followers, a motley crew of outcasts and misfits, were drawn to his magnetic allure, ready to embark on a perilous journey that would forever alter the course of history. As the moon hung low in the sky, casting a spectral glow over the sprawling metropolis, Charles stood atop the hill, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly fire as he began to weave the dark tapestry of his malevolent scheme. In the hazy, sun-drenched afternoons of Los Angeles, where the smog clung to the mountains like a shroud, there lived a man whose name became synonymous with terror, a man whose legacy was etched into the annals of American history, a man whose actions would cast a long, dark shadow over the city. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had once been a drifter, a dreamer, a follower of the Beat Generation, until fate, or perhaps something far more sinister, twisted his path into a trail of blood and chaos. It was on the picturesque streets of the wealthy Tate-LaBianca ranch that Manson's reign of terror would culminate, a saga that would captivate the nation and leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. The tale of Charles Manson and the Manson family is one of obsession, manipulation, and a chilling descent into madness, a story that begins in the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles and spirals into a nightmare from which the city would never fully awaken. In the shadowed annals of American criminal history, there exists a tale as chilling as the winter night it unfolded. It was in the eerie calm of a Los Angeles morning when Charles Milles Manson, a man with the soul of a serpent and the heart of a killer, emerged from the depths of his twisted psyche to weave a tapestry of horror that would shatter the serene facade of the city. A former drifter with a cultish following, Manson's reign of terror began with the murder of the wealthy Los Angeles real estate developers Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, their lives cut short in a brutal massacre that would send shockwaves through the nation. But as the story unraveled, it became clear that this was just the prologue to a macabre opera, where Manson's influence would reach far beyond the LaBiancas, ensnaring an innocent actress and her unborn child in his web of blood and deceit. And so, in a city known for its golden dreams and silver screen legends, a dark figure rose to claim a place in the pantheon of the infamous, a man who would forever be known as Charles Manson, the architect of the Manson family, and the man whose name would become synonymous with the ultimate betrayal of innocence. In the eerie glow of a moonless night, the quiet streets of Los Angeles lay dormant, a city slumbering beneath the weight of its own secrets. Amidst the bustling sprawl, a shadowy figure moved with purpose, a man whose name would echo through the annals of infamy, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. With a hood pulled low and a face obscured by the darkness, he wandered the labyrinthine alleys, his mind a whirlwind of delusions and dreams. The air was thick with the scent of fear, for this was a man who believed he was the Messiah, destined to lead a group of followers into a new age of purity and anarchy. As he approached the sprawling estate of the wealthy LaBianca family, the weight of his destiny seemed to press upon his shoulders, a heavy burden that he was all too eager to bear. Little did he know, the night would be etched into the collective memory of a city, a night where innocence would be shattered and the line between man and monster would blur forever. In the eerie twilight of the 1960s, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the sprawling desert landscape, as if nature itself was aware of the dark revelations about to unfold. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet enigmatic figure, stood at the precipice of infamy, his name becoming synonymous with a macabre tapestry of murder and chaos. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the hum of insects, a stark contrast to the chilling whispers that followed him like a shadow. It was in this desolate expanse that Manson, a former musician turned cult leader, had planted the seeds of his twisted vision, a vision that would consume the lives of 8 innocent souls and leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. The night was young, but the terror that would soon grip Los Angeles was as tangible as the cold desert wind that cut through the open windows of his modest abode. As Manson prepared to embark on a mission of terror, the world was blissfully unaware of the darkness that was about to consume it, a darkness that would forever change the course of history. In the sordid underbelly of Los Angeles during the summer of 1969, a man named Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca, known to history as Manson, stood like a dark phoenix rising from the ashes of a chaotic world. The city, a sprawling tapestry of ambition and desperation, was the canvas upon which his legend would be painted with strokes of both genius and madness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the Hollywood sign, Manson's eerie lair, shrouded in shadows, became a sanctuary for a cult of followers who believed they were the architects of a new world order. The night air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the faint hum of a city that never slept. It was within these cloistered walls that Manson's twisted vision began to unfurl, a tapestry of murder, sex, and a relentless quest for power that would forever etch his name into the annals of American horror. The moon hung low and full, its silvery light illuminating the path of the Grim Reaper as it descended upon the innocent, unsuspecting residents of the city, setting the stage for a saga that would leave an indelible mark on the fabric of society. In the sordid underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, a man named Charles Milles Manson emerged as a harbinger of terror and chaos. His enigmatic allure and charismatic persona lured a group of impressionable followers into a macabre cult, the family, whose actions would forever stain the city's dark history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the sprawling metropolis, Manson's twisted mind conjured a nightmarish vision that would lead to one of the most infamous murder sprees in American history. His insatiable craving for power and the belief in a prophetic destiny that he would lead humanity to a new age of peace and purity would ultimately result in the brutal slayings of the wealthy and influential. The night of August 9, 1969, marked the beginning of Manson's reign of terror as he orchestrated a series of heinous crimes that would become synonymous with the term Helter Skelter, a haunting prophecy that would be fulfilled in the most tragic of ways. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous summer of 1969, the shadowy figure of Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged as a twisted harbinger of horror, a name that would echo through the annals of criminal history. A charismatic leader of a cult that worshipped the dark arts and the sun god, Manson had an air of both mesmerizing allure and malevolent intent. As the city buzzed with the fervor of the counterculture movement, Manson's followers, known as the Family, were drawn to his charismatic and dangerous brand of chaos. The Manson story began in the smoggy sprawl of the San Fernando Valley, where the eerie glow of street lamps flickered in the night, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the spirits of the past. It was a time when the lines between reality and fantasy blurred, and the line between sanity and madness grew ever thinner. The seeds of Manson's dark legacy were sown in the fertile soil of the 60s, and soon they would bloom into a monstrous and terrifying harvest, a saga of murder and mayhem that would shake the very foundations of American society. In the eerie glow of a California sunset, the city of Los Angeles lay dormant, its streets draped in the silken veil of twilight. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet enigmatic figure, stood on the precipice of history, his dark eyes reflecting the twilight's last gleam. The year was 1969, and the world was about to be forever altered by the man known as Charles Manson. A former drifter, now a cult leader with a twisted philosophy, Manson had gathered a following of devoted acolytes, known as the Manson Family. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling cityscape, Manson's mind raced with a vision of chaos and destruction that would soon become a grim reality. In the shadowy realm of his twisted psyche, he whispered a chilling prophecy, a vision of blood-soaked nights and the fall of civilization. Little did the city know that within its very heart, a storm of horror was brewing, and Charles Manson would soon lead his followers on a harrowing path of murder and madness, leaving a trail of terror that would echo through the ages. In the hazy, sun-drenched days of Los Angeles in the late 1960s, a shadow loomed over the city of angels, casting an ominous pall over the vibrant tapestry of its culture and dreams. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had begun to weave a web of terror that would come to define an era. His followers, the so-called Family, were a motley crew of disillusioned souls, drawn to Manson's charismatic leadership and his twisted vision of a utopian future. The man himself, with his piercing blue eyes and wild, flowing hair, was a living contradiction, a creature of both beauty and beast. It was a time of counterculture, of free love and LSD-fueled revelry, but beneath the surface, a dark undercurrent of violence and obsession was bubbling just below the surface. The Tate-LaBianca murders, a series of brutal and senseless killings, would become the canvas upon which Manson's twisted legacy would be painted in blood, forever etching his name into the annals of American history as a symbol of madness and malevolence. In the eerie twilight of the 1960s, a shadowy figure named Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca emerged from the fringes of Los Angeles' seedy underbelly, a name that would soon echo through the annals of American horror. A charismatic yet deranged cult leader, Manson's twisted mind was a breeding ground for chaos and destruction. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter glow over the cityscape, Manson's followers, a motley crew of misfits and outcasts, gathered in the dimly lit backroom of a seedy bar, their eyes gleaming with a dangerous fervor. The air was thick with anticipation, a sense of impending doom hanging heavy in the air like a dark cloud. Among them was an enigmatic woman named Susan Atkins, whose cold, calculating gaze held the promise of a future shrouded in blood and madness. As the night wore on, the cult's leader, with a chilling smile and a voice that could chill the very bones, whispered his plans for a violent, apocalyptic future that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. In the searing summer of 1969, the city of Los Angeles buzzed with the vibrancy of the counterculture movement, a kaleidoscope of dreams and rebellion. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but enigmatic figure, had emerged from the fringes of the music scene, ensnaring the hearts and minds of a small but fervent following. Among them was an enigmatic woman named Susan Atkins, whose devotion to Manson's twisted vision was unwavering. The air was thick with anticipation as the Manson family, a motley crew of hippies, drifters, and followers, prepared for the night that would define their infamous legacy. It was a time when the lines between good and evil blurred, and the world would never be the same. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter glow over the city, the stage was set for a macabre ballet that would leave a lasting scar on the American psyche. In the shadowed, fog-enshrouded alleyways of the 1960s, the name Charles Milles Manson became synonymous with a horror that would echo through the ages. A man of raw, primal energy, Manson's gaze held a fire that could sear souls, his voice a siren song that promised a different kind of freedom, a freedom from the chains of societal norms. As he wandered the streets of Los Angeles, his eyes scanned the crowd, seeking out those who were willing to cast aside their lives and embrace the wild, untamed wilderness of his vision. Among them, the wealthy and seemingly invincible Tate-LaBianca family became the tragic focal point of his twisted dream. The Manson family, a motley crew of followers, each with their own dark desires and hidden demons, gathered under the darkened moon, their minds poisoned by Manson's fevered sermons and his belief in a coming apocalyptic race war known as Helter Skelter. Little did they know, the blood-soaked dawn of a new era was about to be written, a tale of murder, madness, and a chilling legacy that would forever haunt the American psyche. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles night, the city lay draped in the shadows of its own history, a place where the sun seemed to burn with a relentless fury that never quite faded. The streets were alive with the hum of neon signs, the occasional siren slicing through the silence, but there was an undercurrent of malaise that seemed to permeate the air, a sense of impending doom that hung like a shroud over the city. Amidst this backdrop, a figure emerged, a man whose name would become synonymous with horror and madness, Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. His eyes, a piercing shade of blue that seemed to see through the very fabric of reality, scanned the crowded streets, a cold, calculating gaze that betrayed a mind twisted by a lifetime of chaos. It was here, in this twisted crucible of darkness and light, that the seeds of a nightmare were sown, a tale of blood and betrayal that would echo through the ages, a chilling reminder that even in the most seemingly innocent of places, the line between sanity and madness can be as thin as a razor's edge. In the eerie twilight of a Los Angeles night, the city lay draped in a shroud of silence, save for the distant hum of neon signs and the occasional wail of a siren. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and the metallic tang of rain that threatened to fall at any moment. Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name had become synonymous with terror, slouched against the cold, concrete wall of a seedy apartment complex, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The moon, a pale ghost in the sky, cast a sinister glow over the street below, illuminating the eerie figures that danced in the darkness. This was the night of the Tate-LaBianca murders, a night that would forever etch itself into the annals of American history, and Charles Manson, the charismatic cult leader who would orchestrate one of the most heinous crimes in the nation's history, was about to take center stage. With a chilling smile, he adjusted the strap of his gun, a symbol of power and control, and stepped out into the night, ready to unleash his twisted vision of an apocalyptic future. In the sordid underbelly of the late 1960s, amidst the sweltering summer heat of Los Angeles, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, emerged as the twisted architect of one of the most chilling and infamous killing sprees in American history. A former drifter with a troubled past, Manson had been a minor celebrity in the seedy world of California's counterculture, his name whispered in hushed tones among the Sunset Strip's neon-lit clubs. With his piercing blue eyes, wild hair, and a penchant for wearing a patch over his left eye, he was a mesmerizing presence, capable of captivating the most disparate of souls. It was in the seedy confines of a commune known as the Family that Manson found his true calling, orchestrating a macabre symphony of murder and chaos that would leave a lasting scar on the fabric of society. As the summer sun baked the city into submission, Manson's twisted cult began to spiral out of control, their reign of terror leaving a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions that would echo through the annals of criminal history for generations to come. In the shadowy heart of Los Angeles during the turbulent summer of 1969, a twisted saga unfolded that would forever cast a dark shadow over the city. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but malevolent cult leader, had already sown seeds of chaos and despair among his followers. The Tate-LaBianca murders were the chilling crescendo of his reign of terror. It was a time when the line between the real and the surreal blurred, and the city's most notorious residents became unwilling participants in a macabre ballet choreographed by a madman. The sun baked the asphalt into a shimmering mirage as the scent of citrus blossoms mingled with the acrid tang of fear. Amidst the relentless din of rock music and the constant glow of neon lights, the city's innocence was shattered by a series of brutal slaughters that left the nation reeling. The story of Charles Manson and his followers would become a cautionary tale, a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink and the terrifying power of obsession. In the shadowed corners of Los Angeles during the tumultuous summer of 1969, a name that would echo through the annals of American horror was whispered with dread. The name of Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. The city, a sprawling tapestry of dreams and despair, was about to be torn asunder by a man whose twisted vision of a utopian future was fueled by a cocktail of LSD, violence, and a cult of followers who would become synonymous with the most infamous crime spree in modern history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow over the cityscape, the air was thick with the promise of chaos. For Charles Manson, a charismatic enigma with a penchant for self-proclaimed prophecy, was about to unleash a reign of terror that would leave a trail of blood and despair in its wake. The story of Manson and his followers, the so-called family, was not just a tale of murder and madness. It was a story of a man's delusion and the dangerous allure of his vision, a vision that would captivate and consume the lives of those who dared to follow him into the abyss. In the hazy dawn of Los Angeles, the city that never sleeps was rudely awakened by a symphony of horror as Charles Milles Manson, the charismatic yet malevolent leader of a small cult, began his reign of terror that would forever stain the annals of criminal history. The sun barely broke through the smog-laden sky, casting an eerie glow over the sprawling metropolis, when Manson, clad in his signature BLCK Chinese letter, descended upon the unsuspecting world. His cult, known as the Manson Family, was a motley crew of followers, some drawn by the promise of a utopian future, others by the allure of chaos and the thrill of the forbidden. But as the day unfurled, the cult's true nature was revealed, a tapestry of murder, manipulation, and madness that would leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. With a chilling calm that belied the horror to come, Manson orchestrated a series of attacks that would shock the nation, leading to a relentless pursuit that would end with his capture and trial. Yet the echoes of that fateful morning would resonate through the decades, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can fester within the human soul. In the eerie quiet of a sun-baked evening, the winds whispered tales of a past that clung to the bones of a bygone era. Charles Milles Manson, a man whose name would echo through the annals of history, stood atop a hill, his eyes piercing the twilight like twin daggers forged in the fires of his own despair. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling desert landscape that stretched before him. Manson, a former drifter turned cult leader, was now a specter haunting the dreams of the innocent. His followers, known as the Manson Family, had descended upon Lo's Angels, a city that would soon become synonymous with terror and madness. The scent of citrus hung in the air, mingling with the acrid stench of fear as Manson, cloaked in the cloak of darkness, conjured the demons within his own soul, promising a revolution that would shake the very foundations of society. Yet in the quiet moments, when the world seemed to hold its breath, Manson's mind was a storm, churning with visions of a world where he, the master of his own domain, would reign supreme. It was then, as the night deepened and the stars began their nightly vigil, that Manson's true mission began, a twisted dance with death that would leave a lasting scar on the psyche of America. In the shadowy realm of Lo's Angels in the late 1960s, a name echoed like a curse, a specter of terror that would forever stain the city's history. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic yet twisted figure, had begun to weave a web of chaos and destruction. His followers, known as the Manson Family, a motley crew of misfits and dreamers who had been lured into his twisted vision of a new world order. It was a world where the powerful would be vanquished and the weak would be made strong, all under the dark guidance of their enigmatic leader. The Tate-LaBianca murders, a series of senseless slaughters that would shock the nation, were the grim culmination of Manson's twisted philosophy, leaving behind a trail of horror and a legacy of fear that still haunts the streets of Lo's Angels to this very day. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter glow over the sprawling cityscape, the stage was set for a tale of madness, murder, and the relentless pursuit of a truth that would shatter the lives of countless innocent souls. In the hazy dawn of the 1960s, Lo's Angels sprawled out like a sprawling tapestry of ambition and dreams, a city where the sun kissed the palm trees and the stars seemed within reach. At the heart of this glittering metropolis, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but deeply troubled man, harbored a vision of a new world, a utopia that would rise from the ashes of the old. He called his followers the Family, a motley crew of drifters, artists, and misfits drawn to his magnetic allure. Little did they know, Manson's twisted prophecy would cast a long, dark shadow over the city, as the nightmarish events that unfolded would etch their names into infamy. The Tate-LaBianca murders, a grim testament to the chaos that could be unleashed when the line between devotion and madness blurred. In the sordid underbelly of Lo's Angels during the summer of 1969, the city was writhing under the suffocating heat and the shadow of an ever-growing crime wave. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure with a penchant for chaos, had begun to weave his dark tapestry of terror across the city's sun-drenched streets. A former soldier and aspiring musician, Manson's life had been a series of rejections and missteps until one fateful day, he found a group of loyal followers who shared his twisted vision of a world remade through violence and anarchy. Among them was Susan Atkins, a free-spirited nomad with a thirst for danger, and Patricia Krenwinkel, a former model with a haunting beauty and a chilling demeanor. Together, they would become the harbingers of Manson's grim prophecy, a cult of followers known as the Manson Family who would come to terrorize the city, leaving a trail of blood and madness in their wake. The story of Charles Manson, his followers, and their infamous reign of terror would unfold like a dark symphony, a chilling tale of obsession, manipulation, and the unfathomable depths of human evil. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the summer of 1969, the sun baked the city into a simmering cauldron of crime and chaos, casting a long, sinister shadow over the lives of the wealthy and the desperate alike. Amidst the smog and the neon glow, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, emerged as the dark alchemist of a cult that would soon become synonymous with terror. His twisted vision of a new world order, driven by a fervent belief in the apocalyptic prophecies of an ancient manuscript, would lead him to orchestrate a series of chilling crimes that would shock the nation and cement his name in infamy. As the cultists, led by Manson's charismatic presence, descended upon the city, their lives intertwined with the fates of the wealthy Tate and LaBianca families, setting the stage for a macabre dance that would end in tragedy and the unraveling of a dark and twisted tale that would echo through the ages. In the shadowy, sun-drenched sprawl of Los Angeles during the turbulent 1960s, a name whispered like a curse echoed through the streets: Charles Milles Manson. A charismatic and enigmatic figure, Manson's life was a tapestry woven with threads of hippie idealism, LSD-induced visions, and a chilling obsession with apocalyptic prophecies. It was in the seedy underbelly of the City of Angels where his legend was born, a legend that would ultimately intertwine with the harrowing tale of the Tate-LaBianca murders, a grim saga that would shake the very foundations of American society. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the cityscape, Manson's twisted vision of a new world order began to take shape, a world where the innocent would pay the ultimate price for their perceived betrayal. The stage was set, the cast was gathered, and the curtain was about to rise on one of the most haunting chapters in American history. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the tumultuous 1960s, Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic but deranged cult leader, orchestrated a spree of brutal murder that would leave an indelible mark on American history. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a Chinese letter, 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 Manson's followers, known as the Manson Family, moved with a sinister purpose through the shadowy alleyways. The air was thick with the scent of fear and the stench of decay as they executed their chilling plan, their eyes glowing with the feverish intensity of a madman's vision. It was a night that would become synonymous with horror, a night when the line between sanity and madness blurred into a terrifying amalgamation, and Charles Manson, with his wild, piercing eyes and a voice that could sound both gentle and malevolent, would rise from the depths of obscurity to claim his place in infamy as the architect of one of the most heinous crimes in modern times. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the 1960s, the city's neon glow bled into the dark shadows of Sunset Strip, a place where dreams and nightmares intertwined like the sinuous curves of a serpent. Among the raucous din of rock clubs and the siren wails of the city that never sleeps, a twisted force was born, a force so malevolent it would become synonymous with madness itself. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic and enigmatic figure, had descended upon the city, luring a motley crew of disciples with promises of a utopian future that would transcend the very fabric of reality. Little did they know, the path they were being led on was paved with terror and the blood of innocents. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a crimson glow across the smoggy cityscape, Manson's reign of horror was about to begin, and the names of Tate and LaBianca would forever echo through the annals of American history, a chilling testament to the darkness that lies just beyond the veil of normalcy. Under the sapphire sky of a Los Angeles night, the shadows cast by the silver crescent moon played sinister games on the sun-baked streets, whispering tales of a city long entangled in its own dark history. Charles Milles Manson, a charismatic, brooding figure, wandered the neon-drenched avenues, a beacon of chaos in an otherwise mundane landscape. The city buzzed with life, the clink of champagne glasses mingling with the hum of distant freeways. But in the heart of this urban symphony, there was a quiet malaise, an undercurrent of dread that thrummed just beneath the surface. It was within these shadowed alleys and seedy taverns that Manson found his flock, his family, drawn to his mesmerizing aura and his promises of a new world, a world untainted by the mundane. As he orchestrated his twisted vision, the stage was set for the harrowing saga that would forever etch the name Charles Manson into the annals of American horror. In the quiet hours before dawn, the city slumbered, blissfully unaware of the darkness that lurked just beyond its periphery, waiting to claim its innocent victims in a nightmarish ballet of blood and destruction. In the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles during the turbulent summer of 1969, the name Charles Milles Manson cast a shadow that would ripple through the years like a storm of dread. A former drifter, Manson's charisma was a toxic cocktail of ambition and delusion, and he had gathered around him a motley crew of devotees who believed they were the architects of a new world order. The city's vibrant tapestry of sunshine and celebrity was a backdrop to the twisted web he wove, and soon, the names of the wealthy Tate-LaBianca family became the linchpins of his apocalyptic vision. It was a time when the line between the counterculture and the criminal underworld blurred, and Manson, with his twisted philosophy of rebellion, became the embodiment of a society on the brink of chaos. As the sun dipped below the Hollywood Hills, casting a golden glow over the cityscape, Manson's grip on reality grew ever tighter, and the stage was set for a tragedy that would shock the nation and etch his name into infamy. In the shadowy annals of California's history, a name echoes like a specter of malevolence: Charles Milles Manson Tate-LaBianca. The year was 1969, a time when the West Coast buzzed with the psychedelic dreams of the counterculture movement. Yet beneath the surface, a sinister undercurrent was churning. Charles Manson, a charismatic enigma, had been casting a long, dark shadow over the Sunset Strip, his every word and action a puzzle wrapped in riddles. He had gathered around him a motley crew of followers, the family, a cultish coterie who believed in his twisted vision of a coming apocalypse. The Tate-LaBianca murders, a chilling crescendo of horror, would shatter the idyllic facade of the Golden State and leave an indelible mark on the American psyche. It was a summer of sun-kissed beaches and burning love, but beneath the shimmering surface, a storm was brewing, and Charles Manson was at its heart, his chilling laughter echoing through the night as he plotted his descent into infamy.